Hello, what's going on, folks? My name is Dalton, Dalton J. Brown on Twitter. I am here for today's Touch 'em All show, brought to you by SportsMap Elite, the best group of handicappers that you'll find at the best price, $19.99 a month. We've got a lot of baseball to go through today. We've got 18 different games. I do not have bets on all 18 of them, but I will be going through them one by one and at least giving some opinion on them, some thoughts, some information for you to work with in case you are looking to place a wager on any one of them. Today it'll be just me, so I will try not to speed through this too quickly, but we've got a lot to get to, and I'm looking forward to diving right in. We do have 3 double headers today. So I'm going to start with a few game ones first in the afternoon, and then from there I will jump in rotation order, game by game. Feel free to toss a question in the chat or anything else that you want to say. If you want to heckle me, that's fine too. I will try to watch that and respond to things here and there. But without further ado, we will go ahead and kick it off with one of the first games of the day. 9-5-1 Arizona Diamondbacks at 9-5-2 LA Dodgers. This is part of a scheduled doubleheader at Dodger Stadium. This is actually the first time in Dodger Stadium history that they've had a scheduled day-night doubleheader. It's part of a makeup game from the lockout. It'll be Tyler Gilbert on the mound for Arizona. Gilbert, who famously threw the no-hitter last year, hasn't thrown a ton in the majors this season. But Arizona will be plus 180 on the money line. Dodgers will be minus 200 on the money line. Our total there is 9 runs. Run line is minus 110 either way. Dodgers favored minus 1.5. I've actually got a first 5 innings look here, but we'll dive into the matchup first. Tyler Gilbert getting a start for Arizona. He has only thrown 3 innings against the Dodgers in his career, only gave up a run. This was actually this season back on April 25th. That was in relief. The Dodgers typically struggle a little bit against left-handed pitching. They're slightly below average offensively in that split. They're 17th in the league with a WRC plus of 97. By Dodger standards, that's absolutely putrid. And I think Gilbert's in a position today where he could give the Dodgers a little bit of trouble in the early going in that game. Kind of a sleepy noon start local time on the West Coast. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dodgers struggle a little bit offensively early going there. He'll be opposed by Ryan Pepiot for LA. Pepiot making his second major league start. He made his debut in Pittsburgh last week, and he looked okay. The stuff is there. Got a really good changeup. He struggled a bit with command in that game. He ended up walking, I think it was 4 or 5 hitters in just 3 innings of work, but did not allow a run. So he did a good job working out of trouble in that first start against Pittsburgh. I think we should see him a little more settled down here, probably fewer nerves with it being his second game. And a home start at noon on a Tuesday at Dodger Stadium, I imagine it'll be like a relatively sparse crowd. And if you look at what Arizona's done against right-handed pitching, they haven't been good against either split, but 86 WRC plus, that's 14% worse than average, 25th in the league. The total here is a little puzzling to me. First 5 total at 5 feels aggressive. It feels higher than it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and play that under as the first play of the game. That's first 5 innings, under 5 runs. I think both of these starters should be somewhat comfortable. They may not go more than 4 innings each, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're heading into the 5th in a 1-1 game or a 1-0 game before the Dodgers bats probably get going later on. Moving on from that game, we are going to find the next day game on the board here, and that is going to be 9-6-7, 9-6-8. That's the first game of the doubleheader between the White Sox and the Royals. That's going to be a game where the Sox are going to send Dylan Cease to the mound. The Royals are sending Heasley to the mound. White Sox currently a pretty heavy favorite there, minus 175 on the money line. Royals plus 160. Over under 8 runs in that one. Once again, we've got a run line with the White Sox minus 1.5, close to even. They're minus 115. Royals plus 1.5. You can get it minus 105. The White Sox are a team that I'm not typically looking to play them against right-handed pitching, and especially not as a substantial favorite like this. he's really only made one start in his career. It was May 12th against Texas. 3.1 innings pitched, 1 earned run. I don't really know what to make of that. I'm guessing he probably pitches once or twice through the order, and then we turn it over to Kansas City's bullpen. Their bullpen has been pretty much league average. They've got a 4.24 ERA in May. The White Sox bullpen over that span, for what it's worth, 4.89. So while you'd expect the advantage to go Chicago's way when the bullpens get in the game, not so sure right now. But Kansas City offensively, they're not hitting for any power. They fired their hitting coach a couple days ago. They've got well under 20 home runs on the season. And I think a guy with high velocity like Cease, I could see him having some success against that lineup. He faced them back on April 27th, through 6 innings, allowed 2 runs. He was lit up in his last start against the Yankees, but I think the Yankees are doing that to a lot of people right now. His career against Kansas City, 3-2, the 2.96. Obviously, this is an opponent that he faces pretty often. He struggled a little bit at Kauffman Stadium. His ERA is 4.5 there. But Kansas City has just been an abomination this season offensively, especially against righties. They've got a WRC plus of 80 in that split. Chicago, for what it's worth, not much better. They're at 83 on that number. So I'd probably lean to an under here, but it's tough because I think you're probably going to get a lot of these bullpens. I don't know what that game is going to look like late. So I don't have a play here. If you forced me to play it, I'd probably look at the first 5 under. Next one after that, I'm going to go ahead and locate the third of today's day games on my sheet, which is the Cardinals and the Mets. This is going to be actually 985, 986 on the betting card. They've got a doubleheader today in Flushing. First game of that doubleheader, we're going to have Miles Mikolas on the mound for St. Louis, taking on Trevor Williams for the Mets. Cardinals are coming in there at even money. Mets are a slight favorite in game 1 at -120, over under 8 on the total. This is an interesting spot for St. Louis. They played really well on Sunday Night Baseball, and they probably benefit from last night's game getting rained out in New York, especially, it's coming off Sunday Night Baseball and then traveling. It probably does them quite a bit of good. And sending Miles Mikolas to the mound has been, generally speaking, a very successful venture for them this year. He threw 7 shutout innings already this season against the Mets back on April 25th. So he's seen this lineup and had success against them before. He hasn't allowed more than 2 earned runs in any start this season. And he's pitched into the 6th inning in every start except opening day when, as you probably know, most starters weren't quite built up yet. He's only allowed 4 earned runs over his last 32 innings of work. He's been really strong over that time. He is facing a Mets offense that's been quite good against righties this year. They rank 6th in the majors, the WRC plus of 118. But I'm just not seeing any reason to believe that Mikolas won't continue at least some modicum of success here. I think you probably don't get 7 shutout innings again, but I think there's a pretty good chance you get 5 or 6 innings. He'll allow a run or 2. Probably good enough, as I see it, to have put the Cardinals in front at the end of 5 innings, especially against Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams is a decent right-handed starting pitcher, ERA a little under 6 this season, but this is a guy who pitched for Pittsburgh for quite a few years. He's seen the Cardinals a ton, and they like what they've seen against him. They are they're 6-4 against him. He's got a 5.64 ERA in the matchup. He's kind of been a hit or miss guy from start to start this year, but we're going to probably see a lot of their bullpen. Trevor Williams has yet to complete 4 innings in a start this season. So to me, I think Mikolas is more likely to pitch deep in the game. I think he matches up better in the matchup here to pitch well against the Mets than Williams does against the Cardinals. And I think the Cardinals are in a much better spot for having the day off yesterday. So, first 5 innings, we're looking at a pick 'em here, -110 to take the Cardinals. I like that quite a bit. So I'm going to be on that in the first game of that doubleheader. That is a 3:10 Eastern time first pitch there. So moving back into normal rotation order now, we are going to be jumping in with 953, 954. That is the Washington Nationals and the Miami Marlins getting together down in Little Havana. This is a matchup of one terrible starting pitcher and one good reliever, which makes it a little bit tough to handicap. Yoan Adon is going to be taking the mound for Washington. They are going to be plus 140 in this one. The Marlins at home minus 166. We've got an over-under there of 8.5. This is a game where I think for Miami, you're probably looking at 4 or 5 innings of their bullpen at least. Cody Poteet, who's going to be their starting pitcher, he's been excellent this season. He's only allowed 1 earned run all season on 16.1 innings pitched. He has been extended out to 4 innings. That's how long he went in his last outing against, I believe it was Milwaukee. I'm guessing they're going to be looking for him to get through that lineup twice, probably 50 or 60 pitches. So depending on how he does, that could end up being a full 5-inning start, but it kind of remains to be seen there. I do think he'll probably be pretty successful against that Washington lineup. That's just not a team that is hitting terribly well. And then you look at Miami's bullpen, they're 11th in baseball with a 3.75 ERA in May, fairly solid. So I think Miami as a minus 160 favorite here makes sense. I also think you just can't back Yoan Adon right now for Washington. This is a guy who's made 7 starts this season. He's allowed 3 or more earned runs in all but one of them. He's walked 23 batters in the 32 innings he's pitched this year. And he's already walked 10 batters in May, and that's in less than 9 innings of work. He's just not fooling anyone. The Nats are 3-9 in the last 12 games. They've been absolutely terrible. Marlins aren't exactly a hot team either. Again, this is the game I'm not itching to play, partially because the angle that I would want to play is Miami laying the 1.5. And I just, as much as the matchup seems to fit that, I'm not sure that what we've seen from Cody Poteet so far this year is going to continue. He's just not a guy that I want to trust with that. So I'm going to stay away here. If you had to play it, I would look for a way to play the fish. Moving on to the next game on the board, we've got 9.55 San Diego Padres at 9.56 Philadelphia Phillies. This is the opener of the game. Opener of this series at Citizens Bank Park. Some places are listing both starters, some aren't. We've got Mike Clevenger on the mound for San Diego. Everything that I've seen, it'll be Zach Eflin on the mound for Philadelphia. Padres plus 105 underdog on the road here. Phillies minus 120. Over under 8.5. Phillies minus 1.5 on the run line will pay you out plus 165. This is a spot where I absolutely love the over. Just looking at what this Phillies offense has been doing, they went absolutely nuclear in LA. They torched Julio Urias and Walker Buehler on back-to-back nights. That's just not something you see very often. It was just an incredibly impressive showing from them. Didn't have Harper on Sunday, and the offense sputtered a little bit. He got an injection, but he should be back in the lineup tonight, DHing despite the injury to his shoulder. You look at Mike Clevenger for the Padres, coming off that huge injury. He hasn't been impressive so far. He's made 2 starts against the Cubs and Guardians, 2 lineups that are far inferior to what Philly's going to throw at him. He's allowed 10 hits and 5 walks over just 9 innings of work. His ERA is sitting around 5 and deserves to be there. You look at Zach Eflin on the other side, coming off a bout with COVID. He hasn't had a start in 16 days. He's not typically a guy that I'm looking to back either. And you look at his starts so far this season. It's a mix of good and bad. But we know that the bullpen that's coming in behind him is absolutely terrible. So the way I look at this, you're probably only getting 4 or 5 innings tops from Eflin because he hasn't made a start in 16 days. And then you're probably going to get half to more than half of the game from that Phillies bullpen. I would not be surprised at all here if we were looking at another 7-5, 8-6, 9-7 game, the type of game that Philly just played in LA. You look at these bullpens. Philadelphia, 5.36 since May 1st. Even San Diego, a little bit more than average, 4.32 ERA since May 1st. I'm just not really seeing a path to an under. And if you look at the way overs have been trending upward in May, this is one I will absolutely be playing over 8.5 runs between the Padres and Phillies. Moving on to the next game on the board, we've got the Cardinals and Mets once again. Game 2, which will be a 7:10 p.m. start as of now. This one, the Cardinals are going to be sending Steven Matz to the mound. He is 3-3 with a 6.40 this season. He'll be opposed by Taijuan Walker for the Mets. He's 1-0 with an ERA of 3 flat. Over under there is 8. Mets are a small underdog plus 115. Or excuse me, the Cardinals are a small underdog plus 115 on the road. Mets are favored minus 125. The first game I liked the Cardinals first 5 innings. This one I like the Mets in the first 5 innings. A little bit of zigzag theory there, but really just comes down to the pitching matchups. Both of these bullpens have been middle of the road so far this season, so I don't handicap it too much based on that. I'd rather just look at the starters. Taijuan Walker's had an interesting season for the Mets. He's made 4 starts this year, and the first 3 of them were all against Philadelphia. He pitched really well twice, didn't allow a run, and then got absolutely lit up in his 3rd start against them. To me, that's understandable. That's a really good lineup, and if you see them 3 times in a row, they're eventually going to figure you out. And I'm especially bullish on him because of how he bounced back. He came out against Washington in that 4th start, threw 7 scoreless innings, looked dominant. And St. Louis is not an offense that comes out and kills righties. They're middle of the road in that split. So I think we probably get a pretty good start from Taijuan Walker here. I think he's worth backing in the first 5 innings at just minus 125, and especially against Steven Matz. Steven Matz he's fine, and I could see that maybe he'll be a little amped up for this start going back to New York to pitch against the Mets. That is his home state. He's already pitched against them once this year, though. Did not go well. Only lasted 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs. That was a couple weeks ago on April 27th. And he's allowed 3 or more runs in 3 of his last 4 starts, and a couple of those were disastrous. He's allowed 5 home runs in 2 starts so far this month, so the teams are hitting for power against him as well. The Mets aren't exactly a juggernaut against lefties. They're right around league average, but to me, right now, Steven Matz and Taijuan Walker is a much bigger pitching mismatch than meets the eye. The Mets are a slightly better team overall, so laying just 125 in the first 5 innings here, I will be on the Mets in the first 5 innings in game 2. So Cardinals first 5, game 1. Mets first 5, game 2. Going to keep the bullpens out of it. Don't want to be dealing with that today in Queens. Moving on to the next game on the board, we've got 959 Pittsburgh Pirates at 960 Chicago Cubs. That'll be JT Brubaker on the mound for Pittsburgh, taking on Keegan Thompson for the Chicago Cubs. Money lines here, we've got Pittsburgh as a plus 120 underdog, taking on Cubs at a minus 140 favorite. Over-under is low here at 7. Run line, if you want to lay the 1.5 with the Cubs, you'll get a pretty juicy plus 160 there. This is kind of an interesting spot here. 2 teams that are really familiar with one another. A lot of data to go off of. You look at what Keegan Thompson's done. He's worked out of the bullpen, and he's kind of starting a semi-bullpen game here, but he's pitched as many as 4 innings already. He pitched 16 2/3 scoreless innings to start the season. He's been just okay since, but he hasn't allowed more than 2 runs in any outing so far this season. And like I said, he's been pitching multiple innings. It's hard to imagine him getting lit up too much here by Pittsburgh. He did throw 4 shutout innings against them on April 22nd. I think he'll go out there, and again, he's a guy who'll probably go once, maybe twice through the lineup. I'm expecting 3 or 4 innings. I don't think he's going to give up too much to that lineup. But what excites me with the Cubs here in this spot, he's turning it over to a bullpen that's pitched to a really impressive 3.12 ERA in May. This is a team that's kind of shut it down late in games, and Pittsburgh really hasn't. The Pirates are 4.59 ERA in May. That's 20th in the bigs. And JT Brubaker, he's already pitched at Wrigley once this season on April 24th. Only lasted 3 innings in that one, allowing 2 runs. Didn't look sharp at all. He's allowed at least 2 earned runs in every start this season. To me, this is kind of a simple handicap. The Cubs have the better starter. Cubs have the better bullpen. Cubs have the better lineup. Cubs are at home. I think they should be more like a minus 170 favorite. I'm happy to lay the minus 140 on the money line. Obviously, get the best number you can there, but To me, this is home Cubs on the money line over Pittsburgh. I like it quite a bit. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Atlanta Braves, game number 961, heading to Milwaukee, game 962, take on the Brewers. These two teams played a 1-0 game yesterday with Milwaukee pulling it out. Pretty close to a pick'em here. We've got Tucker Davidson on the mound for Atlanta. He's a young kid. He's had a couple playoff appearances already, but not too much major league action. He'll be taking on Adrian Hauser for the Brewers. Brewers minus 112 on the money line. Braves minus 104. We've got an over-under of 8.5 in Milwaukee today. This is a really tough game for me to form a betting opinion on. I think Adrian Hauser is obviously the guy we've got more data to work with. But he's had 2 disastrous starts so far in May. He's already allowed 12 runs, granted only 7 of them earned, in 9 innings pitched, and that was all against Cincinnati, who, if you followed baseball at all, you know that Cincinnati is not exactly a world-beating team this season. And you look what he's done against Atlanta in his career, 0-2 with a 4.63. That's not terribly alarming. 4.63 is not too far from league average. The teams have already played 4 times this year. They've split them. I think I lean Milwaukee just because Hauser's got a lot more experience. He's a guy that I think will bounce back. It's just a matter of when. And the Braves bullpen has been pretty good in May. They're 10th in the league, but now they're missing Tyler Matzik, and that's a huge deal for them. I think Milwaukee's bullpen is probably primed to regress positively. So to me, I don't know what you're going to get from Tucker Davidson on the mound for Atlanta, but I'm not expecting anything crazy. This is a guy with an ERA of 4.5 at AAA Gwinnett so far this year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Milwaukee get to him a little bit. I don't know what we're going to get from Hauser. If you force me to play the game, I think Milwaukee's the side to take at home because I think regression is going to come in their direction on both bullpens. But I'm not – there's so many games on the board today. This is not a compelling enough one for me to want to play it. So we'll go ahead and move on there. Next game on the board, 963 San Francisco Giants heading up to Elevation, take on the Rockies. This is a rematch of a pitching matchup that happened actually about a week ago. Alex Cobb on the mound for San Francisco, Chad Kuhl on the mound for Colorado. Giants going to be a pretty significant favorite here, minus 167 on the money line. Colorado catching plus 140 at home. Total here, 11.5 or 12, depending on where you look. And on the run line, you got Giants minus 1.5. That's about minus 110 both ways. So for all intents and purposes, Giants are a 1.5 run favorite here. Look, this is a game. They played it last week. It was Cobb against Kuhl. I like the Rockies on the road in that one, plus 1.5. And I like them again here, plus 1.5 in the same pitching matchup. I got burned that time. They lost the game 7-1. I'm not going away from it. Alex Cobb has looked decent so far this year for San Francisco. We've seen this guy for years. We know who he is. He's fine but unspectacular. And I think pitching at Coors for him is going to be a whole different experience than pitching at Oracle Park was. I think Colorado right now is probably a little bit undervalued. They're 2-8 in their last 10. That's bound to turn around, and they're a team that plays well at home over the last few years. Alex Cobb has also allowed 2 or more earned runs in every start except that one against Colorado. So I think the Rockies offense will keep them in this game. I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a lead early. And, I look at Chad Kuhl. This is a guy who's allowed 1 or 0 earned runs in 4 of his 6 starts. I think you look at it, both of the starts for these two pitchers when they matched up a week ago look like outliers. And while I understand that, hey, we just saw this matchup, it didn't go this way. To me, that's only giving us more value on Colorado plus 1.5 at home. I think it's definitely the sharper side here, and I'm going to plug my nose and be on it once again. So it's going to be Rockies run line plus 1.5 for me. I've got that at minus 107. I'd probably play it up to minus 115. Next game on the board, we are going back to LA, the final All-National League game of the day. This is game 2 between the Arizona Diamondbacks 965 and the 966 LA Dodgers. We've got Merrill Kelly on the mound for Arizona against Tyler Anderson for the Dodgers. Money lines here. Arizona, once again, a huge underdog, plus 190. Dodgers minus 210 on the money line, total 7.5. It's very tempting when I see Merrill Kelly with how he's pitched this year at plus 190 or on the run line at minus 105 at plus 1.5. I'm not playing Arizona, despite that I've got half a mind to do it. He already faced the Dodgers once this year, gave up 3 earned. He's faced the Dodgers a ton in his career, and the numbers aren't good. He's 0-5 with a 4.57 ERA, 0-2 at Dodger Stadium. He's had a few good starts against them, but typically what happens, he's good the first time through the order, maybe a second time through the order, and eventually the Dodgers' bats start to get to him. Crushing right-handed pitching is what the Dodgers do. They're vicious in that split, and I think they're eventually going to get to him. I also think that this might be a spot to buy low on Tyler Anderson. He was killed by Philadelphia, just like every pitcher on the Dodgers staff was last week. I don't really know what to make of that. Dave Roberts basically left him out there to rot, forced him to throw 6 innings, even though he gave up 7 runs. I think he probably bounces back today and pitches a little bit better. Arizona's WRC plus against lefties is 28th in the league at just 79. They're a light-hitting offensive team to begin with. They're especially poor against lefties. And I think it's a decent spot for him to bounce back. So, it's just – I get it. Merrill Kelly catching plus 190. He's been pitching really well. I would caution against it in this spot. The Dodger Stadium crowd at night will be a lot better, but Dodgers are way too familiar with Merrill Kelly. So total stay away game for me. If you had to play it, I guess you'd take Arizona on the run line, but I'm not getting in front of the Dodgers against a righty here. Moving into the American League, next game on the board, 9-6-7 Chicago White Sox heading on the road for game 1 of a doubleheader against the Kansas City Royals. We covered that one already. We're going to go ahead and bump on down to 9-6-9-9-7-0. This is the Detroit Tigers and the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a 6:40 Eastern time game. This one is interesting to me in that I think that there are things to be learned from it in terms of how lines are built and where to identify value. I am splitting a bet here. I'm playing half unit one place, half unit another. I'll get to that in a minute. We've got Tigers as a plus 245 favorite, Rays minus 275, Tigers plus 245 underdog. Rays minus 275 favorite. That's the biggest favorite on the board today by a mile. The over-under here is only 6.5. So I'll start there. I think the money line and the total tell 2 totally different stories, and I think that's really important to note. If you're looking at a total of just 6.5, in theory, there's not a ton of room for separation between the two teams. I think of it like an NFL game where you've got a team laying 14 points against another, but the game total is only 36. It's a lot harder to cover a number with a low total. Now, I know here we're just talking about a fat money line, not necessarily covering a number, but with a total of just 6.5, that tells me bookmakers aren't exactly expecting the Rays to blow up Bo Brisky, the starting pitcher for the Tigers. And I get it. Bo Brisky's been okay. He's allowed 1 earned, 3 earned, 3 earned in his 3 starts. He's gone at least 5 innings every time. He's already faced the Dodgers and Astros. He's been a decent, albeit unspectacular MLB starter, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was reasonably okay again today. The Rays being favored obviously makes sense, but I don't think a 6.5 total makes sense. You've got a rookie making his 4th major league start. I get Detroit's offense has been terrible, but McClanahan hasn't exactly been dominant. I mean, he's been good, but he's allowed 2 or more runs in 5 of his 7 starts so far this year. Let's say Detroit goes out there and gives us 2 runs over the first 6 innings, and Brieske goes out there and does what he does and gives up 3 runs over 5. I don't see any reason why we're not looking at a 3-2, 2-2 ball game through 4 or 5 innings. And at that point, getting over 6.5, all we need is one of the 2 bullpens to not be great today. So I'll be on that total over 6.5. I am also going to be on the Tigers plus 245 on the money line. That is just a huge number. Look, this isn't prime Jacob deGrom against Yohan Adon or something. It doesn't. The line doesn't compute for me, and it's hard for me to really see both of those bets losing. To me, minus 275 for Tampa would suggest they're going to get after Brisky. Fine. If they do, I think this cashes the over. And then I look at some of the numbers here too. Detroit's actually been okay against lefties. They're actually slightly above average with a WRC plus of 101. That's just about tied with what Tampa's done against righties. So as far as lineups here, I'm not seeing a huge edge for Tampa. Look at bullpen ERA. Detroit 10th, Tampa 17th in the month of May. You could argue that Detroit's been better there. So I don't see why Detroit can't compete here. So if you're going to give me 2.5 to 1, I'm going to take that every time. So again, we've got half a unit on the Tigers plus 245, half a unit on the over at 6.5 in that one. And again, that's Tigers and Rays. That is a 6:40 Eastern time first pitch. Moving on to Baltimore, we have the New York Yankees heading on the road. Another huge favorite to take on the Baltimore Orioles. Yankees are going to be minus 225 on the road. That's Jameson Taillon on the mound for them. He'll be opposed by Spencer Watkins. Orioles are plus 205 on the money line. Over under 8 in that one. Yankees run line getting real expensive here at minus 145. So, I mean, look, it's really difficult to sit here and bet against the Yankees. I'm not going to lay a minus 225 money line. I'm not going to lay a minus 1.5 run line at the number that it's at. If anything, I think the Yankees team total at 4.5 is tempting. You look at Spencer Watkins for Baltimore. This is a guy who now his career ERA is up over 7, 2-8 on the record. 2 career innings pitched against the Yankees. They went absolutely terribly. His last start out, he allowed 7 earned in 3 2/3 innings at the Cardinals. I'm not seeing any reason for hope for him against the Yankees. This is a Yankees team that's best in baseball against right-handed pitching with a WRC plus of 125. I don't see how any of this bodes well for him. Yankees minus 1.5 probably hits. I'm not willing to lay minus 145 on that. Taillon has been decent. He's actually already faced Baltimore twice this year, which is part of what's keeping me off that Yankees money line. Through 9 1/3 innings in those starts, 4 earned, so he was fine, unspectacular. He's been consistent, though. He's allowed 1 or 2 earned runs in every start so far this season, and as you know, the Yankees are on an absolute tear. To me, the simplest way to play this game would be Yankees team total over 4.5. Pretty good chance that gets added to the card. Haven't yet at this point. I'll tweet it out if I end up playing it. That comes in at minus 135. Moving on to the next game on the board. 9-7-3 Seattle Mariners heading on the road to play 9-7-4 Toronto Blue Jays north of the border. Logan Gilbert on the mound for Seattle, who I have a Cy Young future on. He'll be taking on Jose Barrios for the Blue Jays. Mariners coming in here as an underdog at plus 130. Blue Jays favorite at minus 140 on the money line. Over under 8 runs. This one is a little bit puzzling to me. I think the line's a little bit of an overreaction to the fact that Logan Gilbert has all of a sudden looked really human his last few starts. But he's still the pitcher I trust more out of these two. The stuff absolutely plays for Gilbert. And I think Jose Barrios has just done nothing but disappoint since he's gotten to Toronto. He's allowed 11 earned runs in his last 10 innings. And Seattle hits righties well. They WRC plus at 114. That's 8th in baseball in that split. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mariners get a couple runs in early here, allow Gilbert to settle in. The talent is absolutely there for Gilbert. I think, he'll probably – you're dealing with another good offense in Toronto. I wouldn't be surprised if they get to him a little, but I think you're getting the better starting pitcher here at plus 115 in the first 5 innings as an underdog. I get that Toronto probably has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Seattle overall, but today in particular, I'm not seeing enough to warrant Seattle getting any more than even money in the first 5 innings because any advantage that the Blue Jays have overall with the roster, I think is pretty much nullified by the pitching matchup today and how good Logan Gilbert's looked overall. So give me the Mariners first 5 innings plus 115. Again, that's 973 on the betting board. On to the next game here. We've got game 2 between the White Sox and the Royals from Kansas City. Pitching matchup in this one, Lucas Giolito on the bump for the White Sox against Brady Singer pitching for Kansas City. White Sox, solid favorite here, minus 161. Royals at home catching plus 140. Over under 7.5. A little bit juice to the under. Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot already about the White Sox being particularly unspectacular against right-handed pitching. And obviously the Royals are unspectacular against all pitching. Look at Brady Singer so far. This is his first start of the season, actually. He's made 3 bullpen appearances, hasn't thrown more than 3 innings in any of them, so I'm guessing they're going to look for him to get through the order maybe once. And I think, you look at Kansas City's bullpen then to follow him, it's nothing super impressive. I think the only way you can really look are to the White Sox, but again, they're facing a right-handed starter. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes them a while to get their offense going. Lucas Giolito on the mound for the White Sox. He threw 7 strong innings against Cleveland on May 10th. Tons of experience against Kansas City in his career. He's 8-4 with a 3.43 ERA. He's actually thrown more than 100 innings against the Royals in his career. This is a more palatable number to try to play Chicago than the other game, but not really dying to do it. On to the next game on the board. This is an ALCS rematch from last year. Series continuing between the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox. This is 977, 978 on the betting board. Astros turning to Jose Urquidy. Red Sox going to Nate Eovaldi. Astros are going to be a small underdog here, plus 107. I'm showing the Red Sox at minus 117 on the money line at home at Fenway. Over under 8.5. This is a game where I liked Houston yesterday against the Red Sox, and they didn't come through for me, but I'm going to be back on Houston again today on the money line. They absolutely love hard-throwing right-handed pitchers, and they've hit Eovaldi incredibly well. Last year in the postseason, he actually threw 10 innings against Houston, allowed 8 earned runs. Faced him during the regular season last year, Houston had 11 hits, 5 earned runs in just 5 innings. They get after pitchers like Eovaldi. I think they're going to get after Eovaldi today. Houston's second in baseball behind the Yankees against right-handed pitching. WRC plus of 123. They're dominant in that split. One thing that gives me a little bit of pause here, I look at Boston. Their WRC plus against righties on the season is actually below average at 92. But since the start of May, that's at 122, well above average. Houston, by the way, over that span is at 147, just obscene. But look, Houston is on fire. I think they've won 12 of their last 14 games now, and their bullpen's a lot better than Boston so far, especially this month. Houston's bullpen this month has put up a 2.56 ERA. Boston's put up a 5.91. And, Jose Urquidy's not exactly pitching deep into games, but he's only allowed 1 earned in 9 innings in May. I think he'll do enough to keep them competitive through the first 5 innings. I have a feeling they're going to get after Nate Eovaldi. And once you get into the underbelly of that Boston bullpen, there are a lot of runs to be had here for Houston. So I think as long as Jose Urquidy doesn't get absolutely blown up, I think you're looking at a pretty comfortable Houston money line at plus 107. I think it's pretty simple. Houston's the better lineup. They've been the better team, especially recently. They've hit Eovaldi well. So pretty simple. I'm going to be on Houston on the money line. Moving on to the next game on the board, staying in the AL West, we've got the 9-7-9 Anaheim, not LA Angels, heading to Texas to take on the Rangers in Arlington. This is going to be Reed Detmers, fresh off his no-hitter, taking on Taylor Hearn for the Rangers. Detmers and the Angels are a minus 125 favorite on the road here. Total there, 8.5. I am concerned about Reed Detmers. Obviously, the no-hitter, unbelievable. Hats off to him. Great start for him, but he was not that guy and he hasn't been that guy. His career numbers are still not good, and he's already faced Texas once this year back on April 15th. It went terribly, gave up 5 earned, didn't get through the 4th inning. And if you look at what he's done overall in his career, he hasn't looked major league ready outside of the no-hitter. That's not to take anything away from him. The no-hitter was unbelievable, but it's also concerning on another level. He made 108 pitches in that game. If you look at the rest of his starts this season, he made 75 pitches, 65, 70, 88, 78. So we saw him move up 30 extra pitches to finish that no-hitter, and now here he is coming back on normal rest against the Rangers, a team that already clobbered him once this year, a team that's above average against left-handed pitching so far this season at plus 102. I think we need to remember who Detmers was before the no-hitter. I think there's plenty of reason for optimism for him on his career, but tonight I wouldn't expect him to pitch that deep. I think Texas might get to him a little bit. The only thing keeping me off the Rangers on the money line is I think 115 is not generous enough. I think the Angels are a much better team overall, and Taylor Hearn hasn't exactly looked great. The Angels put up 3 earned on him. He didn't get through the 4th inning against Anaheim in their last outing against his last outing against them either. He has looked good in May. 1.80 ERA through 2 starts in May, much better than the 7.47 he put up in April. But at the end of the day, this is one where I don't trust either starter. I would look to the over, but 8.5 in that ballpark is pretty high. That's a dead nuts pitcher's park. So, I'll be looking for value here. If I can get a Rangers team total at 3.5, I might look there to play that over. But nothing on this game. I would say though, don't get sucked in by Angels at minus 125 with Detmers on the mound and feeling all good about his no hitter. Dangerous. I wouldn't mess with it. Moving on to the next game on the board. 981 Minnesota Twins. They are out in Oakland taking on the A's. Twins looking to Dylan Bundy on the mound here against James Kaprielian for Oakland. Bundy and the Twins are minus 132 on the money line. Oakland plus 122. Over-under of just 7 here. Juiced pretty heavily to the over at minus 125. Dylan Bundy. This guy, he's got to be so frustrating for Twins fans. Look, his first 3 starts, 15 1/3, 1 earned run, absolutely dominant. Twins are feeling like they've got him back to the form he found in Anaheim when he was excellent for a minute. And now his last 2 starts, he's thrown 9 2/3 innings, 15 earned runs, 4 homers, 18 hits, 4 walks. He's completely come undone, and it's not like he's done it against the Yankees and Astros. He's done it against the Rays and Orioles. I don't know how you back him here, especially not as a favorite. But I also don't know how you back Oakland. Oakland is DFL, dead effing last in baseball against right-handed pitching. They have a WRC plus of 67. That is 33% worse than an average team. They don't hit righties. They don't really hit anybody. So something's got to give here between Bundy and the A's. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't have much to add. Minnesota, for what it's worth, has been above average against right-handed pitching, 12th in the league. Kaprielian in his last 2 starts for Oakland has been pretty good. Oakland's bullpen in May has been pretty good. ERA right under 3. Minnesota has played particularly well against teams that aren't any good. They're 16-9 against teams under 500. Gun to my head, I think Minnesota wins the game, but I'm not going to back Bundy, certainly not as a favorite. And I don't know necessarily what to expect from Minnesota. They still don't have Carlos Correa. Buxton's been carrying that offense, and Royce Lewis has actually looked pretty good taking over for Correa, but just no value in the number. Maybe over 7 just because Dylan Bundy's on the mound. That's a low total, but I don't know. That game kind of grosses me out. On to the next, our only interleague game of the day. That is the Cincinnati Reds, who threw a no-hitter and lost the other day, taking on the Cleveland Guardians. The Reds are going to be an underdog of plus 142. Guardians, decent-sized home favorite, minus 157. Over-under 8.5 today in Cleveland. Connor Overton on the mound for Cincinnati. This is a guy I saw pitch for the Louisville Bats quite a bit. He's actually looked really good so far. He's made 3 major league starts. He's pitched 17 innings, only allowed 3 earned runs, and that includes a start at Coors Field. So give the guy a ton of credit. He's off to a good start in his career. I don't know if that necessarily continues. This is a Cleveland lineup that's been a lot better than people expected. They've been piecing together runs pretty consistently. You know, Zach Plesac is obviously the bigger name here, starting pitcher for Cleveland, but he's been a mess. I look at his last few starts, 17 runs scored against him in his last 15 innings of work. Over that span, he's walked 8, 17 hits, 3 bombs, and the Reds are kind of rising from the dead. They've won 6 of their last 10. They're starting to play decent baseball. You start to wonder if Cleveland is regressing negatively and Cincinnati is starting to regress positively. I can really only look to Cincinnati here at plus 140 or maybe on the run line, but I'm not quite interested enough. I think that any game now, Plesac's going to figure it out. I don't think he's this bad of a pitcher. Just like how any game now, I think a team's going to get to Overton. I don't think that he's all of a sudden a Cy Young candidate. So not quite a game I really want to get too involved with. Moving on to the next, and believe it or not, final game on the card here today. And that is actually game 1 between the Cardinals and Mets, which is Michaelis and Williams. We covered that earlier. So that'll do it. That was 18 games in 46 minutes. That was a whirlwind, lot of talking. Taking a look here at my list of bets overall on the day, I'll kind of run through them one more time. We've got 10 of them total over the 18 games. Half unit each on Detroit plus 245 and Detroit and Tampa over 6.5. 1 unit on Houston plus 110 on the road in Boston. 1 unit on Seattle plus 115 on the first 5 inning money line. 1 unit on Colorado plus 1.5 on the run line against San Francisco. We're taking the Cubs minus 140 on the money line at home against the Pirates. San Diego and Philadelphia, we are playing over 8.5. St. Louis in game 1, first 5 innings, minus 110. The Mets in game 2, first 5 innings, minus 125. And the nightcap tonight, the day game today between Arizona and Los Angeles, we've got first 5 innings under 5 between the D-backs and Dodgers. That'll do it for today. Appreciate everybody who tuned in. Again, you can get all the content that we've got at SportsMap Elite for just $19.99. Just $19.99 a month. A lot of really talented people there. I've gone a little cold on baseball over the last week and a half, but picked it up the last 2 days. We're 8-3 over the last 2 days. Looking to continue that today. So would love any comments on Twitter. Feel free to yell at me if these picks lose. But looking forward to watching the games tonight, and looking forward to being back with you real soon here on Touch 'Em All. Thanks so much for joining.